Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. Welcome to our now live weekly roundup from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for putting up with us changing the time on you at the last minute. I will explain why that's happening, but our crew is always here and they always show up. So thank you so much to Tony and to Pammy and Alicia and Martha Ivy. Sneemac, good to see you. She says, woohoo. I agree. I second that woohoo. Everybody's juiced. Here's what's going on. There is never a dull moment in the Ritter household. I have been dealing with a bit of a tooth issue for the last week or so, and I've been putting it off, dealing with it. Finally, I couldn't deal with it anymore. I went to see a specialist this very morning, and he says to me, sir, that tooth's got to go. You've got problems with that tooth and we got to take it out. So I am going to get surgery this afternoon on my tooth. That's what I have planned for my fun Friday. I hope that you guys have something better going on. But because of that, we had to make some choices. Are we going to scrap the weekly roundup altogether? Are we going to do it on Saturday when I'm going to have a swollen face? Hopefully not. Or are we going to just do it early? And we decided, let's just do it early. We'll go live. We'll do it live. So we're doing it live. We're going early. We appreciate all of you being so easygoing about all of it. Hopefully next week it will be a little bit more pre-planned, but you never know. Around this house, things change on the fly quite often. But we still have everything to share with you. We still have a lot going on this week. We're going to have a good time. So let's just all take a deep breath. I'm probably speaking to myself more than anybody else. Take a deep breath. This is all going to work out. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. A key prosecution witness in the case against a Utah woman accused of killing her husband by poisoning his Moscow Mule has now changed his story. Plus, a former NFL star quarterback faces felony charges for a violent attack, causing many to wonder if he will see prison time. And a jury will soon decide the fate of an Ohio woman accused of murdering a 3-year-old boy. Was it a deliberate attack or an act of insanity? All this and more this week on Courtroom Confidential. I am your host, Joshua Ritter, an award-winning Los Angeles prosecutor turned criminal defense attorney with 20 years experience navigating the criminal justice system, bringing you my unique insights from both sides of the courtroom. Today is Friday, October 10th, 2025, and this is your Courtroom Confidential weekly roundup. Let's jump in. Attorneys for Utah mom Kouri Richins, accused of killing her husband, Eric Richins, with a fentanyl-laced drink, say prosecutors failed to turn over evidence after a key witness changed his story. Prosecutors claim Richins bought the fentanyl from her housekeeper, Carmen Lauber, who said she got the drugs from a man named Robert Crozier. But according to new court filings, prosecutors interviewed Crozier back in April, and he denied ever giving Lauber fentanyl. Richins' attorneys say they were never told about the interview, calling it exculpatory evidence the state kept quiet about. Prosecutors allege Richins bought fentanyl from her housekeeper twice in 2022. First, to spike her husband Eric's sandwich on Valentine's Day, which he survived, and later to mix into his Moscow Mule cocktail, killing him. But Crozier reportedly told prosecutors he sold Lauber Oxycontin, not fentanyl. When asked about his earlier statement saying otherwise, he said he didn't remember making it, explaining he'd been detoxing and out of it at the time. Richins' team says they only learned about this new version after interviewing Crozier themselves last month. Her attorneys wrote, quote, "If the state cannot place fentanyl in the hands of the defendant, the state has no case." Mr. Crozier's statements doesn't just poke holes in their case, it throws a grenade into the middle of it, leaving them nothing but speculation and conjecture, getting them nowhere near the realm of beyond a reasonable doubt. Richins has been in jail since May of 2023, charged with aggravated murder in her husband's death on March 4th, 2022. Prosecutors say she poisoned him while they were celebrating the purchase of a new home for her real estate business. Her defense is now asking the court to reconsider bail, arguing the evidence no longer supports keeping her in jail. Richins is set to stand trial in February. All right. Well, what is happening here? How bad is this? It's bad, but not maybe in the way that you think. Will this earn her and her team a dismissal? No. Likely no, to the point of me just saying no. It's simply not enough. It's bad. It's certainly bad for the prosecution. It certainly calls into question their theory of the case. It certainly throws a wrench, I think, into the works, not a grenade, according to the defense. But really, the judge's determination until you get to trial is about probable cause. The judge decides at the preliminary hearing, is the probable cause to take this case to trial? Not, is it a case that's beyond a reasonable doubt? That is a question for the jury. And I think he will allow this to remain that way. I think he will say, listen, it's bad. It is certainly hurtful to the prosecution, but it's not enough for me to say you don't have a case here. And there is other evidence to support the allegations. This is a case that should remain for the jury. It's a question for me as to the weight of the evidence, not as to the admissibility of the evidence, and I'm going to allow it to proceed forward. But is it a discovery violation? Yes, it absolutely is. And I think that is the bigger problem. It is a clear violation, in my view, of the discovery obligations of the prosecution. We talk about Brady violations all the time, and this is a clear example. Anytime the prosecution is in possession of any evidence that may be exculpatory to the defense, they have to turn that over. But here's something even more important. Anytime they get anything new, they should be turning it over. I don't care if they re-interviewed this man and he said the same exact thing he said before. Compile a report, put it down on paper, and hand it over to the defense. What are you doing hiding the ball at all? Really, where this could turn ugly is if there's any evidence that they didn't turn this over intentionally, if they buried this. Now, I have a little bit more faith in the prosecutors in this case that they wouldn't do something so clearly in violation of their obligations. They could lose their bar card over something like intentional violations of discovery, like burying evidence. I hope that's not at play here. But even if this was just negligence on their part in not turning this over, I think it's a clear violation. But what does the judge do? What is the remedy for this is the question for the judge. Does he toss the case? No. Does he toss this witness? Well, that could be a remedy. You could say, listen, you have played so fast and loose with the rules as far as this witness's testimony that I'm not going to allow this witness to testify. That could be damaging to the prosecution. But again, I don't think the judge will go that far. I think he will say, this gives you a ripe opportunity for cross-examination and impeachment defense because it is helpful to the defense. It might be a different story if this new information were hurtful to the defense, and now it puts them on the eve of trial on their heels. End of the day, the defense is going to have a field day with this. This is just wonderful impeachment for the defense. They can show that this person, first of all, was unreliable at the time they gave their initial statements. Secondly, he's changing his mind. He doesn't know who he sold what to when. And if that is what the prosecution is basing their case upon, then they've got a weak case. And it further emboldens their central argument in this whole thing, and that is this was a rush to judgment. They are going after our client because they feel that they don't have any other answers, essentially. And I think that's what you will see play out. Now, how will the prosecution respond? Well, let me tell you this. First of all, as the prosecution, you're used to this. You don't pick your witnesses. You don't go through central casting to decide who's going to be your star witness. Okay. You take the witnesses as you have them. And oftentimes they do recant, and oftentimes they do change their story, and you got to roll with the punches. That's just part of being a prosecutor. I will tell you, I've dealt with this many times when I was a prosecutor. I even dealt with witnesses recanting on the stand. I've called witnesses to the stand who were star witnesses, quote unquote, for my prosecution. I have asked them to identify the defendant in court, who they've identified plenty times before, by the way. And they say, I don't see the person sitting here. I say, well, what about that gentleman sitting down at the other end of the table? He looked familiar? Nope, never seen that man before in my life. You roll with the punches. You turn that witness perhaps hostile. You start to cross-examine them. You present them with their prior testimony and prior statements, but you have to keep on moving and soldiering forward. And the prosecution does have other evidence in this case. We've talked about the walk the dog letter many times before. We've talked about the prior instance of perhaps poisoning him on Valentine's Day and her motivation based on her financial troubles. All of this, I think, is enough for them to certainly bring a strong prosecution and perhaps even a conviction in this case. But make no two ways about it, it's going to be a problem for them. They're going to have to deal with this. And I think the way to deal with it is probably just to get out front on it when they call this witness. Didn't you change your story, in fact, on this? But bail is the other issue why this is being brought up. They have been desperately trying to get Kouri Richins out of jail. She's on a no bail hold right now, which I don't quite understand. Utah's not where I practice, but apparently that's what they do there. Is this a changed circumstance enough to get her out, though? Probably not. I think, unfortunately for Kouri Richins, probably not. But I think she should have bail. I get how everybody feels about this case. I also feel that this is not a case where you hold somebody in with no bail whatsoever. But we will see. But what do you guys think? Is this damage to the prosecution beyond repair, or can they recover from this? Please let us know in the comments. Jimmy McNutty says the housekeeper is still a key witness and she lied about her source. Housekeeper can be a witness or a defendant. Put pressure on her to reveal her source. I like that. Good thinking by Jimmy McNutty, and we appreciate you commenting. Christina Wiley says, I'm worried that Kouri has a better chance of at least getting a lower sentence because of the witness. We will see. Perhaps the jurors will feel differently about the strength of this case based upon that witness. And finally, Nashay's an extraordinary machine. Yes, you are, says, I really don't think Crozier's change in testimony changes much, to be honest. Well, we'll see how all of that affects the jury in this case. The 69-year-old truck driver injured in an altercation with former NFL player Mark Sanchez is now taking legal action as he continues to recover from what his attorneys calls a violent, unprovoked attack. Attorneys for Perry Toll say he was defending himself when he stabbed Sanchez during a fight outside a hotel loading dock in Indianapolis. Sanchez, who is currently a Fox Sports commentator, was first arrested on several misdemeanors. But after police learned more about Toll's injuries, prosecutors added a felony charge, battery resulting in serious bodily injury. Court documents say Sanchez, age 38, suffered multiple stab wounds, while Toll sustained a deep cut through his left cheek, slicing through to his mouth and jaw. Toll's attorney, Eric May, says his client is still recovering both physically and emotionally. Quote, mentally, what he and his wife are going through has been considerable, May said. He's just really shaken up. According to investigators, the altercation happened early Saturday morning. Toll was parked at the hotel's loading dock for work when Sanchez allegedly approached him and said he couldn't park there. Court records say Sanchez then climbed into Toll's truck and kept him from calling help. When Toll reached for his phone, Sanchez allegedly shoved him. Feeling in physical danger, Toll pepper sprayed Sanchez, but says Sanchez kept coming. Fearing for his life, Toll said he thought this guy is going to kill me and pulled a knife, stabbing him several times. Toll said he was knocked backward into a dumpster and fell into pallets on the ground. He said he didn't know exactly what Sanchez was doing, only that he saw the former football player's feet coming at him. When he got back up, he stabbed Sanchez again. Toll has now filed a civil lawsuit against both Sanchez and Fox Sports. If convicted of the felony, Sanchez could face 1 to 6 years in prison, according to Marion County Prosecutor's Office. He's scheduled to appear in court on November 4th. What's happening here? This is bad. This is bad for Sanchez. I'm not going to be a beat around the bush about it. This is absolutely bad. This, in my view, is a prison case. If this case, when I was a prosecutor, landed on my desk, my opening salvo, my opening offer would include prison time. Absolutely. I don't care about his criminal record. I don't care who he is. You beat someone the way that this man got beat in an unprovoked attack where you're the aggressor. Sure, you put somebody into the hospital, you're going to prison. That's just kind of the ticket that you purchase for yourself. You beat someone to the point they go to the hospital, you're going to prison, buddy. Now, we'll talk about if that's actually going to take place in this case. But in California, for this type of a felony, an assault resulting in great bodily injury, what we call GBI, that adds a 7-year enhancement. Like I said, he's in deep, deep trouble. But this case gives us a good opportunity to talk about self-defense. And one of the elements of self-defense, if Sanchez was thinking about claiming self-defense in this case, which he probably will, is the concept that you cannot create the situation that causes you to use force. So in other words, Sanchez can't say, hey, this guy was coming at me with a knife and I defended myself. I'm in fact the hero here. No, sir. We know, and I think we're starting to find out it's not just based on this truck driver's statements, but surveillance footage and perhaps other people who may have witnessed it are saying, you're the one who started this, buddy. You're the one that came after him. You started attacking him. You get into his car. You're highly intoxicated. This man is smaller than you. He's older than you. And he had nothing left to do but defend himself. And he tried first with pepper spray. When that didn't work, then he had to use a knife. You don't get to claim self-defense in that case. But the truck driver does. He was attacked. He produced a knife. I think his response to the threat was reasonable. His perception of the threat was reasonable, and his use of force was reasonable under the circumstances. So what is the prosecution going to do here? Well, they're in a rough spot because in spite of what I said about his lack of criminal record and all of that not really mattering, it does matter. This is an anomaly in this man's life. He has lived a law-abiding life. But they have to weigh that with the idea that you've got a person that's never committed a violent crime in his life that we know of. And then you're also dealing with a celebrity, and you don't want to be showing favoritism to celebrities. This is a difficult case for the prosecution as far as how do they handle this beforehand and what kind of offers do they start making to him? Because if they do start offering him prison time, you can bet it's going to set the world on fire, and they're going to fight it, and they're going to say it's outrageous, and they've got to play this kind of even-handed. Do they want to give Sanchez a second chance here? Do they want to understand the aggravating or perhaps even mitigating circumstances of intoxication? What are they going to do with this? I don't envy them in their position. And I will say the filing of the lawsuit only complicates things for the prosecution. It's not helpful to them. When I was a prosecutor, this is something that would annoy me and other prosecutors all the time when you would show up to the court and there's the civil attorney and they're kind of whispering in your ear because they've got motivations very different than yours. Your motivations as a prosecutor should be first and foremost, pursue justice. And if you've got somebody in your ear who's saying, in one sense, they want you to pursue the case because a conviction criminally helps them out civilly, that's something that you don't need to really consider. And then in the other sense, if they settle this case, if Fox or Sanchez writes a big check and they settle the case, then they're going to be whispering in your ear to go ahead and give him a good settlement because they've already taken care of what they need to take care of. It never helps. It's never in the pursuit of justice. As far as the prosecution is concerned, it complicates things, it makes them messy, and it makes it about money, which is not what prosecuting criminal cases should be about. And I'm surprised that they filed it so quickly. But what do you guys think? Do you think he'll go to prison on this case? You think there's actually a chance of that? Please let us know in the comments. Jude Evans says, I think Sanchez definitely gets himself fired for this. I think there's no doubt about that. Fox Sports doesn't want anything to do with him. Granny Detective says, there should be no exception to the law because you are famous. The law should apply equally across the board. I completely agree with that, and I think it should be true. And Fala, damn it, you're so fantastic. Thank you so much for gifting the Courtroom Confidential memberships. We appreciate you. All right. Defense attorneys laid out their case Thursday in the murder trial of an Ohio woman accused of fatally stabbing a 3-year-old boy and injuring his mother in June of 2024. Bionca Ellis, a 34-year-old from Cleveland, faces 10 counts, including aggravated murder in Julian Wood's death. She is also charged with attacking the boy's mother, Margot Wood. Police say Ellis did not know the victims when she attacked them outside a North Olmsted Giant Eagle grocery store. During the first day of testimony on Tuesday, witnesses said they saw Ellis stab and attack the young child and his mother. The witnesses said that after Ellis stabbed them, she walked away calmly. Another witness said Ellis was smiling after the stabbing. On Wednesday, Margot Wood testified about the attack in the Giant Eagle parking lot. Wood said she was loading groceries in the back of her vehicle when she turned and saw Ellis. Quote, "I saw her walking toward us, and I noticed she had a knife in her hand, and I said, 'Oh no, Julian,'" Wood said while on the stand. "I moved, and she stabbed him in the side of his face and then stabbed me." Wood said she had never seen Ellis before the attack, and after stabbing them, Ellis did not say anything. She just walked away like nothing, Wood said, just walked away. On Thursday, Detective Sean Ventris said one of the first officers on the scene testified and showed security video of Ellis purchasing a knife at a Volunteers of America thrift store, then walking into the grocery store with it. The defense pointed out that Ellis never attempted to hide the knife. After the prosecution rested, the judge dismissed one charge of tampering with evidence before the defense began. The defense called Dr. Megan Testa, a forensic psychiatrist who restored Ellis to competency for trial. Dr. Testa testified that Ellis was competent after being medicated, but did not offer an opinion on her legal sanity. She said Ellis was suffering from her diagnosed mental illness at the time. It is unknown if Ellis will testify in her own defense. The defense said they are not denying that Ellis killed Julian, but argued that she is not guilty by reason of insanity. Attorneys told the court that Ellis had suffered from schizophrenia for over a decade, and her mother had been seeking help for her. What's happening here? Well, first of all, let's always clarify the terms at play and the difference between competency and insanity. Ellis has been declared incompetent in this case more than once, and she's had her competency restored. But now she is claiming that she is not guilty by reason of insanity. And what's the difference between the two? Well, first of all, there's a temporal difference. Competency has to do with your present state. How are you now as you sit in court? Insanity, from the legal perspective, has to do with your mental state at the time that the crime was committed. They also have to deal with differences in degree and the question about that we're asking about that person's mental state. For competency, the bar is very low. It's essentially, can you understand what's happening? Do you know who the judge is? Do you know who the prosecutor is? Do you know who your defense attorney is? Can you assist them? Can you answer their questions and assist in your own defense? It's a very low standard. Insanity asks a different question. It asks the question of, at the time that the crime was committed, could you essentially appreciate the difference between right and wrong? Did you know the ramifications of what you were doing? Did you know what you were doing when you stabbed that 3-year-old boy? That was wrong. What you were doing was wrong. Now, the defense has done something very important to move that argument along on their behalf. And that is, they had an expert testify that she had a diagnosed mental illness. That's the first thing you need in order to establish an insanity defense. You can't just say a person out of the blue, oh, they were insane at the time. You have to show some sort of injury or some sort of diagnosed mental illness. And here they've established that. The next question they have to do is show somehow through her actions or her conduct or words that she simply, in that midst of that diagnosed mental illness, could not appreciate the consequences of her actions. So we need to look at her actions. Those in favor of the insanity argument are things that we've heard about. Smiling after committing a murder. One witness testified that he said to her, you know, you stabbed that boy. And she just kind of shrugged. The mother said she said nothing in response. The unprovoked nature of it, the randomness of it, all of those, I think, speak towards a person who may not even been appreciating what they were doing at the time. But the prosecution's got some arguments as well. And their arguments to support the idea that she was not legally insane at the time are, one, she stole the knife. That is a person who's planning some sort of attack. That is not a person who randomly attacks someone with just what they happen to have on them. That is a person who went about getting a knife and intended to use that knife. They attacked someone vulnerable. She didn't attack a 6'5", 250-pound linebacker. She attacked a little boy and her mother. The little boy was in the shopping cart. They were vulnerable. They were distracted. She chose a victim that she knew could not fight back. To me, that shows some deliberation, premeditation. And did she hide the knife afterwards? Maybe she shrugged, maybe she smiled, but did she take actions so that she wouldn't be caught immediately? All of these are questions that the prosecution can present. You can be both suffering from mental illness and not legally insane. And that's an important point the prosecution needs to drive home. One final thought on this case is, what will the jury do? I know we've talked a lot about insanity and we've talked about the standards and the law, and they'll have all of that explained to them. What is that jury really going to do? They're sitting there and they've heard this horrific story. They've heard that mother testify. I cannot imagine the nightmares that woman continues to live day by day, reliving that moment, that out of just going about her day, running some errands with her 3-year-old, beautiful little kid. And this maniac comes out of nowhere and stabs him to death. Are those jurors going to have the fortitude to say, well, that's awful, but I need to follow the law here and walk this person out knowing that she's not going to go to state prison for what she's done? And I realize that's not a question about the law. That's just a question about human nature. But what really are they going to do? But what do you guys think? Do you think this is a case of insanity or not? You've heard, I think, some factors that support either side. Please let us know in the comments. Forrest Nelson says she knew enough to buy a knife and then go use it. Maybe mentally ill, but not insane, in my opinion. Bess Nancy says she knew what she was doing. It was deliberate. Either way, I think she needs to be locked up for everyone's safety. And finally, T. Sue says, please like and subscribe and share this with everyone that you think might enjoy it. Thank you for reminding us all of that, T. Sue's. Laura Waldy, thank you for gifting the membership. Appreciate you so much. All right. Hey, everybody. As you can tell, it's been a very busy week. But before I get into the other cases making headlines, I just wanted to take a moment to ask you a very small favor. And that is, if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel now. We want to be able to provide you with the highest quality content that we can. And the best way that we can do that is through your support. All right. Also making headlines. Bryan Kohberger. No criminal charges will be filed against the corrections officer suspected of recording and releasing prison security footage of the man serving life in prison for killing 4 University of Idaho students. Prison officials and the Idaho State Police completed their investigation into the leak, which the state prison system said last month was authentic and in clear violation of Idaho Department of Correction policy. After the footage of Bryan Kohberger appeared online in August, prison leadership promised to hold the person responsible accountable, including termination and potentially criminal prosecution. Investigators say they identified the male IDOC worker believed responsible, but according to state police, while filming the security feed violated prison policy, it did not break state or federal law. The officer resigned before he could be fired. Quote, he has now resigned and there is no criminal violation we can charge him with, said state police spokesperson Aaron Snell. The video does not fall under the definition of contraband. Prison officials declined to release further details, citing personnel laws. The individual responsible for the policy violation was identified and has since left the agency, IDOC spokesperson Sandra Cruzetta Surmagic said. The case was referred to the Idaho State Police, which determined there was insufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges. We remain committed to upholding the highest standards of conduct and will continue to enforce all policies to protect the security of inmates and staff. Kohberger, age 30, was sentenced in July to 4 consecutive life terms without parole for the murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin in November of 2022. He waived his appeal rights as part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Kohberger was transferred to the Ada County Jail in Boise to the state maximum security prison near Kuna. He spent 6 days in the medical unit before moving to a solitary cell in J Block, where death row inmates are housed, which is where he remains. Federal prosecutors told a judge Wednesday that no harm was done to the chances of a fair trial after 2 Justice Department officials reposted comments from President Donald Trump about the man charged with assassinating the United Healthcare CEO last year. In a written submission in Manhattan federal court, prosecutors said the 2 employees aren't working on the case and didn't know the judge had warned lawyers about public statements. They have since been warned. They also noted that the trial date has not yet been set, making it unlikely that the post could influence potential jurors. Quote, these individuals are not members of the prosecution team or trial counsel or staff supervised by the prosecution team or otherwise employed by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, nor are they law enforcement agents working on this prosecution, prosecutors wrote. They operate entirely outside the scope of the prosecution team, possess no operational role in the investigation or prosecutorial functions of the Mangione matter, and are not associated with his litigation, they said. Judge Margaret M. Garnett had previously said the officials likely broke court rules by reposting Trump's remarks and asked the department to explain how it had happened and what steps would prevent it in the future. On September 18th, Trump called Mangione a pure assassin on Fox News. A video of the comments was posted on X by the White House. Justice Department official Chad Gilmartin reposted it, adding, "At POTUS is absolutely right." The post was later deleted, but was reposted by Brian Nieves, a associate deputy attorney general. Mangione has pled not guilty to state and federal charges in the fatal shooting of Brian Thompson on December 4th at a Manhattan hotel during his company's investor conference. Earlier, Mangione's defense lawyers asked the federal charges be dismissed and the death penalty removed, arguing public statements by U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi had already prejudiced their client. Bondi had said in April that capital punishment was warranted for a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. In the federal case, Mangione is charged with murder under using a firearm, which carries a potential death penalty, as well as stalking and gun offenses. Days after being sentenced on prostitution-related charges, a former hip-hop mogul has asked the president for a pardon. On Monday, President Donald Trump said Sean Diddy Combs reached out to ask for a pardon. A representative for Combs declined to comment on Trump's remarks. Combs was sentenced last week to just over 4 years in prison. He'll get credit for the 12 months he's already served at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn since his arrest in September of 2024. He must also pay a $500,000 fine. His attorneys say they're considering an appeal, arguing the judge imposed a sentence 4 times longer than what they requested and that the punishment relied on unproven allegations, not part of the conviction. Lead attorney Tenny Garrigo said the jury made it very clear in their verdict that they acquitted him of the sex trafficking and the RICO counts. Not guilty means not guilty. According to a letter from his legal team, Combs has asked to serve his time at FCI Fort Dix, a low-security federal prison in New Jersey that houses about 4,000 inmates. His attorneys say the facility offers a substance abuse program known as RDAP, the Residential Drug Abuse Program, which would allow for better family visits. In that letter, Garrigos urged the court to recommend placement at Fort Dix, writing, in order to address drug abuse issues and to maximize family visitation and rehabilitative efforts, we request that the court strongly recommend to the Bureau of Prisons that Mr. Combs be placed at FCI Fort Dix for RDAP purposes and any other available educational and occupational programs. The long-awaited murder trial of a Massachusetts man accused of killing his wife, whose body was never been found, has been delayed after a judge ordered him to undergo a mental health evaluation. Brian Walshe was set to go on trial this month for first-degree murder and misleading police in the disappearance of his wife, Anna Walshe, in January 2023. Prosecutors say Anna was allegedly having an affair at the time of her death. On Monday, Judge Diane Frenier ordered Walsh's transfer from the Norfolk County Jail to Bridgewater State Hospital for a 20-day evaluation to determine whether he's competent to stand trial. Bridgewater is a medium security facility that houses both civilly committed patients and pre-trial detainees undergoing competency exams. In a motion to postpone the trial, Walsh's attorney said he was stabbed in a jail on September 11th in what they called a completely unprovoked attack. They say the injuries left him unable to fully participate in his defense or handle the physical requirements of a full trial day. According to an affidavit, Walshe has been disoriented and fearful since returning to jail. His lawyers say that during one meeting to review evidence, he became so anxious he had to be sent back to the medical unit. The affidavit also notes that he's suffering from fatigue and difficulty focusing on his case. A competency hearing is now scheduled for October 27th, and the trial will remain on hold until the judge determines whether he's fit to proceed. The defense is also accusing prosecutors of conducting additional DNA testing without notifying them. Tests they say are still pending, and of withholding evidence that could be favorable to Walshe, though they haven't said what that evidence might be. A 29-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of starting the fire that later became the devastating Palisades fire, federal and local officials announced Wednesday. Jonathan Rinderknecht has been staying at a home in the Palisades Highlands that burned in the January 7th fire, was arrested Tuesday near his home in Florida. Acting U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley says Rinderknecht faces a federal charge of destruction of property by means of fire. According to a criminal complaint, Rinderknecht allegedly started what's known as the Lockman fire in the early morning hours of January 1st after working as an Uber driver that night before. Investigators say two passengers described him as agitated and angry that night. After dropping one off in the Palisades, he reportedly parked nearby, unsuccessfully tried to contact a former friend, then walked up a trail where he took videos on his phone from a hilltop while listening to a French rap song. The song's music video shows objects being set on fire. The complaint says Google records show he listened to that same song 9 times and watched the video 3 times within a span of 4 days before the blaze. Prosecutors also say Rinderknecht's chat GPT logs included an image he generated showing a burning forest with crowds fleeing. After the fire began, Rinderknecht called 911 to report it, but didn't have cell service. Cell phone data replaced him as the only person in the area where the fire started. He fled the scene, but turned back when he saw fire engines approaching. Asaley said while the Lockman fire burned, the defendant walked up the same trail from earlier that night to watch the fire and firefighters. He added that Rinderknecht recorded video of the fire on his phone. Firefighters suppressed the blaze, but the fire smoldered and burned underground for nearly a week. Strong winds on January 7th reignited it above ground, sparking what became the Palisades fire, one of the most destructive in Los Angeles history. The wildfire destroyed or damaged nearly 8,000 structures and killed 12 people. Rinderknecht made his first court appearance Wednesday in Orlando, charged with malicious destruction by means of fire. He's due back in court next Friday, October 17th. If convicted, he could face up to 20 years in prison. An actor turned himself in last week after a misdemeanor warrant was issued after his dogs killed another dog in his Atlanta neighborhood. Tyrese Gibson, best known for his roles in the Fast and the Furious and Transformer movies, faces an animal cruelty charge and appeared at the Fulton County Sheriff's Office on Friday, October 3rd, according to jail records. Gibson was quickly processed and released after posting a $20,000 bond. His attorney, Gabe Banks, said in a statement that Gibson voluntarily surrendered and that his legal team had already arranged a consent bond for his immediate release. According to reports, the charge stems from an incident on September 18th when Gibson's 4 dogs allegedly attacked and killed a neighbor's Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. Authorities say the dogs have not been surrendered to authorities, but Gibson's attorney insists his client has fully cooperated throughout the investigation. In his statement, Banks said, quote, "Despite what others might say throughout this entire process, Mr. Gibson has cooperated fully with legal authorities and will continue to do so until this matter is resolved." Banks' statement continued, "Mr. Gibson once again wants to extend his deepest condolences to the family who lost their dog and respectfully ask for privacy and understanding as this matter is handled through the appropriate legal channels." Banks also said that Gibson immediately made the decision to rehome his dogs to what he called a safe and loving environment. In a separate statement on September 30th, Banks said that Mr. Gibson immediately made the difficult decision to rehome his dogs to a safe and loving environment. Before we get into the cases for the week, I just wanted to share with you a story that happened to me at CrimeCon this year. If you're a follower of this channel, you already know, but I lost temporarily my passport. I've got it back now. Thank you very much. But while it was gone, it is such an unnerving feeling to know that your personal information could be in the hands of another person. But what brought me a little peace of mind was knowing that I had identity theft insurance through Aura, our first ever sponsor. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your information and why your inbox is full of junk, this is why. Data brokers collect and sell your information without your permission, and they make billions doing it. And that is why we are proud to partner with Aura. Aura does the hard work for you. They scrub your information from the internet, protecting it from those shady sites and making sure that your information is kept safe. But it's more than just data removal. It's also about digital security. That's why I felt such comfort even when my passport was lost. You get dark web alerts, bank fraud monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all in one app. Try Aura today, free for 14 days at aura.com/courtroomconfidential. It's free to try, it protects you, and it helps support the show. Please check it out. Before we get to what's coming up next week, I just want to take a moment to say thank you, as I always do, but thank you for being a part of this growing community. But I want to give a very special shout out to Anne Marie for their kind words on Facebook, and to our CC crew members, Carolina Hurtado and Teresa Robinson, for your comments on YouTube. We can't thank you enough for your continued support. Please keep them coming, folks. We appreciate your help in spreading the word about Courtroom Confidential. Best Nancy, thank you so much for gifting a Courtroom Confidential membership. Appreciate you. All right. On the docket for next week, Florida grandmother Donna Adelson will be sentenced Monday, October 13th for first-degree murder, solicitation, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder for the death of her former son-in-law and FSU professor Dan Markel, who was shot and killed in July 2014. She faces up to life in prison. Christina Formella, a former Illinois high school special education teacher who is accused of sexually assaulting a teenage student multiple times, is set to return to court on Tuesday, October 14th. Courtney Clenny, a Miami social media influencer accused of fatally stabbing her boyfriend Christian Obumseli in 2022, will be in court on Wednesday, October 15th for a status conference. Tracy Grist and Kevin Ellis, the mother and brother of Utah woman Catherine Ristelli, who admitted to orchestrating the murder of her husband Matthew Ristelli with her family, will be in court on Wednesday, October 15th. DeCarlos Brown, the Charlotte man who fatally stabbed Ukrainian refugee Irina Zurutska on a light rail train, has administrative hearing on Thursday, October 16th. The California couple charged in the death of their son, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro, will be in court for a felony settlement conference on Thursday, October 16th. Former Massachusetts police detective Matthew Farwell, who is federally charged with killing pregnant 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore and staging it to look like a suicide, will be in court on Thursday, October 16th for a pretrial hearing. And finally, Shanna Gardner and her estranged husband, Mario Fernandez, who are accused of plotting to have her ex-husband, Jared Bridegan, killed in 2022, will return to court on Friday, October 17th for a pretrial hearing. And finally, please join us tomorrow for our special question and answer series, Sunday Fun Day. All are invited to leave us a voice message at thecourtroomconfidential.com, which I will answer live Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. You can find the live stream on YouTube, X, and Facebook. And that is it for us this week, folks. I am your host, Josh Ritter. You can find us on social media at CR Confidential on X, at The Courtroom Confidential on Instagram, or at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Thank you again for joining me. Have a great week, and I will see you again next week for another episode of Courtroom Confidential. You guys are fabulous. You're fantastic. I appreciate you allowing us to bring this to you a little earlier in the day that we had planned. I think I missed one of the thank yous there. Chihuahua Mama, thank you so much for gifting a membership. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody for all of your generosity, all of your support, all of your kind words. My tooth is killing me. This is not fun. I don't know why I waited this long. But I am going to, I'm not even allowed to eat. On top of it, I'm starving, and and I'm not even allowed to drink water, which I think is ridiculous. So I'm cheating, and I'm drinking water anyway. So they can just deal with it, Mr. Dentist Doctor. So a couple of quick announcements. Obviously, you don't have to wait for our weekly roundup later today or tomorrow. This is it. Hope you enjoyed it. On Sunday, we are, depending on my jaw condition, be doing Sunday Funday, but I'm preparing for Sunday Funday. I have a feeling that once they get this bad tooth out of there, I will feel much better. And so I hope to see you all on Sunday Funday. In anticipation of that, please leave us some more messages at thecourtroomconfidential.com. What else am I missing, everybody? I feel like I get to the end here and I lose my train of thought and I miss other things. Next week, we're going to have our regular schedule on Monday and Wednesday, Swollen Sunday Fun Day. Yeah, join us for Swollen Sunday Fun Day. I think that's everything. If that's not everything, I'm sure we'll find time to tell you again. I'll try to update you guys. Maybe I'll live stream the surgery. Wouldn't that be fun? Tiffany saying no. Thank you to Afton and Shy Gal and Kathy and therapists, for being our mods and keeping everybody in line. Join us for Donna's sentencing hearing on Monday. That's right. She's going to be sentenced, and we're going to be streaming it live on Courtroom Confidential Live Trials. That's our sister channel. If you haven't signed up, sign up now. Make sure you've got alerts and everything set up. Let's name Josh's tooth. Yeah, well, maybe we'll put the tooth on a t-shirt too. Yeah. And then what is this? I don't know. What is it, Kaylin? Is this minty ice, or what do you always say it is? Oh, and then, yeah, check out Dr. Patrice. We did she was on Wednesday night, and it was a fantastic show, and we want to send her some love and thank her so much for that. If you guys missed it, please go check it out. We talked about all of these kind of psychological issues. Kathy says her sentencing's at 3 p.m. Eastern, so stay tuned for alerts. In the meantime, Kaylin, thank you so much. I thought you did this incredibly well, and you're so smooth, and you put in so much work, and we appreciate you so much. Cheers to Kaylin for running a smooth as butter show, says Tiffany, and thank you to Tiffany for being the best thing that ever happened to me. All right, you guys, take care. I'll talk to you on Sunday.